So the other day I was in the car with the radio on and heard a story about the Wonder Woman movie, which I haven't seen yet, but I enjoy comic books and superheroes, so it caught my attention. I thought it might be something worth listening to, that is until I actually heard the story. They said that the star of Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot, only made $300,000 for the movie. And I immediately thought, so fucking what? They proceeded to give more numbers about how Henry Cavill from Man of Steel made 14 million. And again, I had to think, so what? The radio hosts were also sort of skeptical about the whole thing, pointing out that they probably didn't expect the Wonder Woman movie to do so well, which is a fair point, but also we have to keep in mind that Man of Steel came out 4 years ago, which may not seem like a big deal, but it's important to keep in mind what the studio is planning. By which I mean the Justice League movie, and with it a chance to rival Marvel Studios at the box office, something DC Comics has been lacking lately. So for Cavill, it's possible that some of that was an attempt to keep him on for the future movies, whereas with Godot, she already knew what she was getting herself into, and so if she agreed to it, then there wasn't really a problem there. Even if she was getting paid less, her thought may have been that the movie would be successful and maybe likely define her career and make her extremely famous, which it definitely has made her more famous. So after hearing it on the radio, I happened to see some articles making the same claim, which I had expected to be the same bullshit, but then I found an article by Vox and I was surprised by how not completely terrible it was. There's plenty in the article that I disagree with, but the gist of the article exceeded my expectations. The article points out that the $14 million figure was from Forbes, but they seem to have gotten it from a questionable source. And on top of that, the $14 million seems to include box office gross, which means he got paid a portion of the box office revenue, whereas the Wonder Woman number is only looking at upfront pay and not any bonus she received from a successful movie. Not to mention if Cavill made $14 million from just that, he also would have made more from Man of Steel because that doesn't include DVD or on-demand sales. That'll come after the movie is released. So either the $14 million would have to include that, or it was income they didn't mention, which makes it even more untrustworthy. The Vox article points out a similar problem, that he should have also received income from other sources for things he starred in, but the source left that out, even though they claim to know his net worth. So we have no reason to believe these numbers, but even if we did, they wouldn't be comparable, since one only includes upfront pay and the other includes the bonus based on how much money the movie made in theaters. And then the article takes a complete 180 and goes full on moron in one paragraph. To be clear, the gender pay gap in Hollywood is real. The Sony email hack in 2014 revealed that Jennifer Lawrence was actually paid less than her male co-star in American Hustle, even though she was arguably the biggest star in the movie. Okay, but immediately before they mentioned a report that Amy Adams actually made more than Henry Cavill for her part as Lois Lane in Man of Steel. They say that they can't confirm this fact, but if you cited an example of a woman making more than a man, and then mention a man making more than a woman, you haven't proven shit. One example doesn't prove anything. It very easily could just come down to negotiation. Maybe Jennifer Lawrence is shit at negotiating, and so she got paid shit. There's nothing sexist about paying people the amount they ask for, so long as it's being done consistently. But looking at the numbers won't tell you that. So if men are generally better negotiators than women, it makes sense that men would be generally paid more, even though no sexism occurred. And the remedy for this shouldn't be to take anything away from the men or to give handouts to the women, but instead to empower the women to negotiate better. And I'm not sitting here judging. I'm horrible with face-to-face interaction, so I suck at negotiating. And maybe it's not the stars that are negotiating, for all I know. My guess is that it probably has a lot to do with their agents, so maybe it just means Jennifer Lawrence had a shitty agent who either didn't want or didn't care to get her a better deal, whereas the other actors in the movie may have had better agents. Also, I can't say for sure that there isn't a pay gap in Hollywood. The gender pay gap has been debunked, but that doesn't mean sexism doesn't exist, so in certain industries there may be gaps in pay due to unfair treatment, but we would have to look specifically at the industry and its practices to know for sure. We can't just look at pay because there's much more to consider, such as negotiating skills, as I just mentioned. And Hollywood seems to be full of plenty of shitty people, so who knows. But one thing's for sure, one example doesn't prove that, especially when there is a counterexample. And besides, people could be sexist towards men too. There's a push by some activists to change the meaning of certain words like racism and sexism. These activists generally spew their ideology of intersectionality, which claims we have to look at oppression across groups to basically decide who is the most oppressed. But I think this only serves to divide us and turn us into victims, rather than empowering us to do our best and bring people together for common causes. The definition they try and use is that racism and sexism and other sorts of isms require prejudice and power, which is bullshit. Homeless people have very little power, but to claim a homeless person can't be racist is nonsense. Similarly, if I have a female boss, then a woman does have power over me. But intersectionality isn't concerned with the individual. Its only concern is with groups. So while a homeless person may have no ability to exercise power over another citizen, if he's white, then he gets all the baggage of the horrible atrocities of history. However, none of the good stuff counts, though. But this is bullshit. What do the actions of people who aren't even alive anymore have to do with a homeless person? Nothing, obviously. He shouldn't be held accountable for something he had nothing to do with. But he should be held accountable for his own actions. So regardless of his social or political power, he can be racist no matter what his race is. And I think it should be fairly obvious why we need to look at the actions of the individual, not the group. Again, if my boss is a woman and she treats me bad because I'm a man, then she's being sexist. Intersectionality seems to suggest that no matter what a female superior does to a man, it's not sexist because women have less power. But my boss absolutely has power over me. But of course, a man with a female boss can still be sexist towards her even though he has less power. So the whole ideology is wrong on two counts. First, acts of racism and sexism are based on the acts of the person, not whatever arbitrary group they belong to. And second, one can be racist or sexist even without power. It'll just mean that the racism or sexism are just words and carry no real weight over that person. Getting back to the article, I have to commend them on at least acknowledging that this specific case was not sexism. But Godot's contract is actually the norm for debut superhero movies. Little known or unknown actors don't make that much money when starring in their first superhero film. It also points out that Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth made about $300,000 and only $150,000 for the first Captain America and Thor movies, respectively. But then the story ends on a happy note, because they say that now Gal Gadot can renegotiate a higher salary for the sequels. Well, yip-de-fucking-do for her. I was worried she wasn't going to make millions. How oppressed would she be if that happened? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share it everywhere and leave a like and a comment. And you can subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. You can also follow me on social media. The links are in the descriptions. Thanks for watching, and remember, never stop questioning.